Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Paranormal Karen, funny too. Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Oh, and did I mention she's funny too? Yeah, cha-cha-cha.
Hey everybody, welcome to Paranormal Karen. We are in April. Please come see me if you are in the Massachusetts area. I will be the whole summer at Tin Pan Alley in Cape Cod. I'm going to be the whole summer in Cape Cod doing a show. And you can email me for information, of course, at karenrontowski.com. You can also book a tarot reading or whatever. Today, one of our favorite guests, probably the guest that has been on the most often, Mr. Jeff Thill is here. I see the comments on YouTube. It's always like, more of this guy, more of this guy. And I was like, okay. And also, before we even start, talking about aliens and perhaps creepy stuff. Jeff, how you doing? Good?
Really good. Thanks, Karen. Great to be on the show again. This is fun.
And the reason that you caught my attention is you're releasing a new album. Is it an album or is it what are they?
It is. Is that what the kids call it? I don't even know what they call it anymore. But I remember a day when, stuff came on vinyl and it was called an album and you went to a store and you had to hold it in your hands, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I am. I just started realizing with all this time home alone, working remotely, that I have a bass guitar that was getting rusty, a drum do basses rust? I don't know. It was a drum set sitting over there. And I've played music, my whole life as a hobby and been in a lot of bands. And I thought, hey, you know what? Now you can just distribute your music digitally without ever, hardly lifting more than a mouse. And so I went about writing and recording 12 songs, and we can, talk a little more about that. They have kind of an interesting Karen Rontowski, alien, paranormal, fun stuff kind of theme to them.
Yes, we played the Bigfoot song, didn't we?
We did, and that song has changed.
Okay.
for all the big Bigfoot fans, there's a remix.
We did there's already a remake. We did a Bigfoot show with my neighbor. He was my neighbor. He just moved. Actually, he moved closer to the Bigfoots, and Carlos, and it was a perfect song to play at the end. So now,
that's awesome.
You have all kinds of paranormal songs. Before we get to other stuff, where do people find it? What name? What website? Where do they get it?
Sure. Well, this is kind of the ground floor. I haven't released the album yet. I still have a couple more songs to go. It's going to have 12 songs. And the name of the band, the little project here, is Sonic Descent. Sonic, like sound, and then the word descent, but Descent, like you're descending from space, wink, wink. So you can go to sonicdescent.com. You can go on Instagram at Sonic Descent. I have a page on Facebook. Take your pick, folks. But I'm already starting to post kind of sneak peeks or sneak listens on the songs and some behind-the-scenes pictures and fun little backstories. So, this is all 80s retro sci-fi pop punk. It just kind of sounds like you're cruising around in your crappy car right around maybe mid-80s and listening to KROQ or 91X or wherever you might have been in Southern California, but, that kind of sound. I don't know if I'm attracting 75-year-olds, 50-year-olds, or 12-year-olds. I don't know, Karen, but we'll see what happens.
And you know what? We'll try and stick one of the songs on at the end if that works. That'd be
great. Yeah, they're all. The good thing is they're all 2-minute songs. It's not much of your time.
Yeah, listen, people, we don't want to ask too much of your time. That's so funny because I have my car is 10 years old and it has it doesn't have where you can plug in your phone and then the government can follow you or whatever happens there. Because I go do that in the rental car and I love it. And I'm like, oh, someday I'll be stepping into the year 2020 and get this. And, but I have the radio, which is almost all 80s. Like it's 80s and 90s. That's all that's on the radio now because it's people like me that are old.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Karen, so funny you said that. I just yesterday, and by the way, this is what I would call unintentional senior moment. I'm in Ralph's supermarket with my wife, and I say to her with a straight face, not realizing the irony of what I'm saying, I say, hey, it's so cool that all of the music they're playing in the grocery store right now is from my era. Then it occurs to me, oh my God, I'm ancient.
It's what every time I go to do my birth chart and then it says put in your year and I have to spin.
Right.
Back, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Well, and the weird thing is vinyl is now back.
Yeah.
And it's
I would love to talk about that very briefly, the world of vinyl. I promise I will make it brief, but that is a very near dear thing to me, especially when it comes to music. So,
oh, really? Now, well, we can let's do that for a second before we get into the aliens, because here's the I have no I don't get it. I don't really. I'm not good with time at all. So like, I don't even feel like I have a past. I don't know what happened or remember things, and things don't become nostalgic. And, I feel like records skipped. That was the whole thing. Records skipped. And then we had cassette tapes, and then the tapes got torn, and then we had CDs, and those weren't supposed to skip, but they did. And now we got the iPad or iPod or our phones, and I say, why would we ever go back? So tell me, why would we ever go back?
By the way, I would like to congratulate you on your very crystal clear, super fast Cliff's Notes for Dummies version of the entire history of how humans listen to music. That was perfect.
Yes.
You perfectly summed up exactly what they were hoping for and how it horribly, misled us in many ways.
Remember spinning your cassettes back together with a pencil in?
Of course, absolutely.
8-tracks. I forgot 8-tracks.
Yeah.
Oh.
My brother, who's, I was kind of the baby, I would say mistake, but my mom said a happy surprise. My brothers are much older than me, Karen, 13 and 16 years older. So, they remember back in the day when they had to run down to the telegraph office and request a song. So,
sometimes
why vinyl?
I like to send a text message as though it's a telegram. Stop.
Right.
Hey, are you going to get here? Stop.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Hey, what's up? Stop. Cool. Stop.
The war's over.
I could probably make it to that. Stop. Yo, you up? Stop. Can you imagine wasting the time of the telegraph guy as you're trying to have a cell phone conversation? Oh my God. That would be hilarious. There's a skit right there. That's a funny SNL skit right there.
Oh my God. I'm still just happy we can just touch it and then touch the heart, and it goes, instead of having to go to the text box and then hit the keyboard and then hit the heart down there and send it. That was a great move, but they need more things with that. All right. So your love for vinyl, tell me.
Well, so, right. And so, I have the opposite situation as you, Karen, and I would even say maybe it's a curse. I do remember every little thing from childhood and every little thing growing up. In fact, it's not my joke, but you've heard it a million times. Why is it that I can remember a jingle from a TV show back in 1972, but I can't remember what I'm doing in the kitchen right now?
My password to my bank. Yes.
Yeah, right, exactly. Why did I come in here? So vinyl, I was super excited when CDs came out. I'm a technological guy. I love science fiction. It just seems so futuristic. And they sounded great. And yes, you're right, Karen. Vinyl albums had a little bit of a pain in the ass factor because, you were very limited as to where you could play it. You certainly couldn't take your album with you in your car and play it in your car, you know. They're not very mobile. And yes, they scratch and they skip and they pop. And if you don't take care of them, they get warped and ruined. But they have a warmth, just this wonderful warm sound. And you don't have to be like an audiophile or someone that you know is super into how music sounds to appreciate it. You know, CDs do in fact have a little more of a cold, tinny, high-end sound to them. They're just not. They're a little colder. They don't have that warmth. So only years later, when I started getting into bands and having fun, did I start to realize that when you're recording music, how much nicer a vinyl album sounds when you're trying to reproduce the warmth of your band versus a CD. And of course, like you said, now they're making a huge comeback because
the warmth.
CDs are gone, everything's digital, and it's so easy to get a really crappy version of a song that's you're really missing out on the depth and the warmth and little, you know, tracks that you don't hear when you're listening to it on an MP3 or on some kind of low rent video on YouTube, you know?
Well, I don't, that's very funny because I like the binaural beats where they go one side of your head and the other. But I had an ex that had a Victrola and no warmth in that one. That's all.
No.
And he was collecting Victrolas. And I was like, that seems very unnecessary. That's what you do when you own a house. You start saving things like Victrolas.
Yeah, that's right. Well, Victrolas can only reproduce effectively probably a very limited frequency range. You know, a Victrola always sounds like super
dusty,
you know, tinny and kind of nasally, you know, when you're listening to a Victrola.
You're already over my head. You're already technologically over my head.
That's okay. So vinyl, yeah. So people are going back to vinyl, and you know, modern era musicians and bands are doing limited releases on vinyl, and it's having a comeback because, hey, for next to no money, you can get a really nice turntable and some good old-fashioned speakers. What? Speakers? And really enjoy the music, and maybe even put on some headphones and plug it into your record player, you know?
I will tell you what albums mean to me. That is where my parents used to hide their money. And they would always have cash in the Ray Charles or the, Ray Stevens albums. And that's where they hid their money. And to this day, if you go to an estate sale and you see the albums that the kids don't know enough to sell on eBay or whatever, people will almost always find like $1,000 in them.
Oh my gosh.
They'll have a whole stack of them, and they'll find like somebody will call me. I just got one and found $1,000 because old people used to hide their money in record albums.
Huh.
Yeah.
Once again, you've just given me a great idea. I don't know if it's a short film or a movie or a TV series. That is a really interesting premise. There's treasure hidden in vinyl albums. How funny.
I have all these little things about movies that would be great plot devices. I have one where does this woman hide the spare key to her house? In the ball in the backyard that she throws with her dog, because the dog isn't going to give anybody the ball but her. I don't know.
Well, that's a good one, because in this movie, the ball, after being the beloved toy of the dog for so long, while the woman is asleep, the dog bites through it and it deflates. And as the dog is chewing on the rubber, it accidentally swallows the key and passes the key when they go out and about. And a stranger finds the key as it has now been effectively passed through the dog. And that leads to all kinds of either A, trouble, or a collision of love in a romantic comedy.
There, you know what? I'm so glad you didn't. I thought you were going to kill the dog. I think
no, the dog doesn't die. And Karen, guess what the name of this movie is?
What?
Poop Key. No, I'm kidding. That's not what it's called. That's a terrible name. But we'll come up with a better name.
We'll call it Play Ball.
Yes, there you go.
Too many. I have to say, and this is sort of along our conspiracy lines. But are you watching the TikTok? I very much enjoy the TikTok. Well, I did right away.
I like how you pinned yourself as an old person by putting the before
TikTok.
Everything.
Yes.
The TikTok, yes.
It's first of all, it has weird life hacks. Those are always my favorite. Like, did you know how you take out your garbage bag and then you push down in it and you give it a shake so that it fits in? You're not supposed to. The garbage bags come inside out so that you can just pull them right over, and then when you put the stuff in, they go down. Did you know that?
No, part of my brain just exploded.
Yeah, the next time there's another, all the iPhone hacks are amazing. For example, you can open your iPhone without unlocking it. You can open any iPhone, and there's about 5 different ways that are up there. And I thought, do you remember when there was that terrorist that was up in the FBI and Apple got into a big fight? TikTok.
Yeah. And they were saying, you got to give us the passcode. We have to get in. This is national security.
Yeah. Now, kids, 15-year-old kids on TikTok will show you how to do it.
Right. That's the one thing that the FBI refuses apparently to hire or understand, is that there are now babies that are, 13, 14 months old that can fully operate an iPad and troubleshoot network compatibility problems, as they're sitting there drooling in front of their cartoon.
Well, I think we are computer programs, and I think, I kind of think the aliens are that. I think the whole thing, everything's a computer program, but the only thing that's not a program, are you ready? This could be the ending to Poop Ball.
No, it's Poop Key, Karen.
Poop
Jesus,
Key.
I don't know what movie you're talking about.
Poop Key.
Poop Ball was a terrible film. Poop Key did great on Rotten Tomatoes. Check it out.
Okay. Poop Key, it sounds like a name, is love. Love is the only thing that's not a program. That's why I think the things like the aliens.
That's because it's an algorithm, not a program.
Oh, it's an algorithm.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm joking. I don't even know what I'm saying.
It's the only thing that, that's why I think therapy can kind of help you with everything. And it can help you when you're attracting the wrong people, but every so once in a while that twin flame comes in. And holy crap, are you in trouble? So we're gonna play we're gonna try and get one of Jeff's songs up at the end. It shouldn't be an issue. And God, we're almost to the break already. So let's get so starting, Jeff. I have a little story. It was always a little story. I tend to try to watch things and then I fall asleep because I start at 10. For some reason, I start at 10. I'm asleep by 10:15. So I don't watch everything. I skim a little of the first 15 minutes. Whole bunch of Stephen Greer stuff out there, right?
Yeah, there are. Yeah, he's making a number of different, pretty high end, well produced documentaries. Yeah.
Yeah, he's in it now. He's out there now, and I'm going to ask you this question, and then I'm going to leave it as a cliffhanger. Okay, hanger. Here it is. He keeps saying they're all good and they've never attacked us. And, the government is ginning up that premise, not to, disrespect to any jinn that might be haunting me right now. But, let's take a break and come right back and talk about what you think, if you agree with that. Okay. Folks, if you want some laughs, you can check out my CD, Psychic Stand-Up Valentine's Edition. You can get it on my website for $5. It's me reading tarot for a comedy crowd. It's funny and interesting and different. And if you don't have any money, go find it on YouTube and go watch it for free. I just want you all to laugh. Also, if you're looking to sharpen your intuition or some really great classes, I'm back in touch with my friend Derek at mysticalwares.net. He is putting up some free classes for the Mystical Wares website. So we got something for everybody. We got a comedy CD and we got all kinds of classes. Thanks and enjoy the rest of the podcast. Okay, Jeff. So, and I know a lot of my woo-woo friends also believe like the Orions or the Palladians. But what is your thought on all aliens being good?
Well, let me say one thing about Stephen Greer. Again, for those that don't know, I worked alongside him for 3 years, from like 1999 till about 2002, when he released witness testimony from all kinds of folks from the government and military that had to do with an alien presence. And it was, brigadier generals and the head of the FAA and guys that worked in, nuclear facilities.
And I'm going to tell everyone, if you didn't hear that episode, go back to, I think it was was it the first episode I did with you? No, I think it was the second. Because that was a great story that you met him at a UFO conference. You were just kind of kicking around. You weren't even in, and the guy had you said, I can edit that for you. That's what I do. And then one day he mailed them all to you, and boom, you were in.
I went there to get stand-up comedy material. Yeah. And I ended up becoming a believer because of, how serious he was and the fact that he had actual evidence. So what my point in that is, in talking to all of these insider witnesses, folks that are in the know, that have actually worked on special access projects within the military-industrial complex, folks that have worked alongside with and around extraterrestrial materials, they, according to Stephen, and Stephen knows much more about it than I do, have never shown, given, or gotten any proof that there is a malevolent alien species out there that is directly trying to hurt us, probe us, or do bad things to us. Okay, so he's earnestly saying that based on his, insider knowledge that he's never seen any proof. He's never seen any proof that there's any malevolent entity, right? So, and he's right. There has been a plan in place for decades, ever since man was, in the space race against the Russians, and we had Werner von Braun running our rocket program. There has been a plan in place that the bad guys in the military-industrial complex, would use technologies that we have backwards engineered from actual alien technology. So these would be man-made craft that can do outrageous maneuvers and would look to any normal person right now like it must be a UFO from another planet, when in fact we've had this technology and kept it secret for decades. So there has been a plan in place to stage events that appear to be aggressive or malevolent in nature and, dun, 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 blame the aliens.
Right.
Why? Why would we do this? Well, anytime you have an enemy, then people start voting for military spending. And this is just what you would call a false flag operation, where you pretend that there's this imaginary enemy, and then you get people to fall in line and willingly vote money to, what they think is protecting the Earth, but it really goes to black projects, underground projects that don't have paper trails. And one of the things they were trying to do for a long time is justify having weapons in outer space to, ultimately they're going to say, protect us from aliens. Well, Karen, you can imagine if, God forbid, you had accurate, devastating weapons stationed in outer space, that's horrible. It's game over for us on Earth, because that means whoever controls those weapons controls Earth. No more armies, no more sovereign nations. You now have someone who has the high ground and can control everybody. Right. So we don't want weapons in space because they can be turned against us. Get it?
Yep.
So anyway, and I'll just say really quick to anyone that might be kind of raising an eyebrow and doubting this, I was told as I was flying on an airplane to go meet with Stephen Greer back east by a woman who was on the plane with me and part of his disclosure project. She was in aerospace and worked with Werner von Braun for years. Again, he was the guy who came over from Nazi Germany, frankly, and was really the guy who got us to the moon. She told me that there was going to be, first, the excuse of the Russians. The Russians are the enemy. That's why we need weapons in space, and that's why we're going to have to spend a bunch of military money. But it was all a ploy. The Russians were going bankrupt. The CIA was tricking the KGB, and they were tricking them, and ultimately we bankrupted the Russians because of all these false information about who had what.
And they didn't know
Then
they could
she
just
said-
print money like we do.
Right. Then she said to me, and this was on the airplane, and keep in mind, guys, this is 2 years before 9/11. She said, the next war or fake false flag operation is going to be, get this, Jeff, a war on terror. At some point, they're going to declare that there's rogue nations, and we have to have a war on terror. And we're going to need to fund the military in large ways. And, of course, all that money, or a lot of it's going to go to these top secret black budget programs that don't benefit us at all and help them establish weapons in space, amongst other things. Then within, I think, 20 months' time, 9/11 hit, and suddenly there was a war on terror.
Wow.
And that kind of sent chills down my spine. And then she said, then you're going to start seeing, according to Wernher von Braun, this is way back in the 70s before he died that he told her all this, then you're going to start seeing asteroids and meteorites. Those are the things that are going to come crashing to Earth. Are they really, though? No. It's going to be an excuse. And sure enough, Karen, if you look on any news feed, it has been ramping up like crazy. About every third day, I see another near miss. What would happen if asteroids hit? Oh, looks like something else is close to Earth. Oh, my gosh, here it comes. Oh, no. Right?
I have to tell you at the end of this, I had a meteorite hit a rental car I was in.
Oh my God, that's so cool! If you could have found that meteorite, you would have a lot of money.
Well, I'll tell you that when keep going, and then I'll tell you the.
Well, anyway, so that was allegedly the third step to get people nervous and thinking about some kind of a defense system in outer space.
Space.
Ultimately, the punchline, Karen, is going to be: what if we have these space-based weapons and we could effectively blow up or deter these asteroids and meteorites? We can defend against rogue nations. Russia, China, whoever. Again, these are all excuses as to why we need to spend money on this.
And
with the punchline,
terrible movie. That was that terrible movie with Ben Affleck and they went out into space and the short guy Bruce Willis. That was the movie.
Armageddon or whatever. Movie,
yeah, something terrible.
So there was two of them that came out at the same time. Anyway, so the final one, which Wernher von Braun laughed at, he thought this one was very funny, but the final fake false flag operation was going to be dun dun dun. The government, whatever, not really the government, but channels are going to finally admit that yes, aliens are real. Yes, we know about them. Yes, we've been tracking them this whole time. But don't get mad at us because, punchline, they're possibly a threat. And we've been doing this to protect mankind, and we wanted to be able to assess the threat before we panicked people.
Yep.
And again, now we come full circle to very specific false flag, fake alien events that Dr. Greer is aware of, such as Project Red Light, which would be to use human, they're called ARVs, alien reproduction vehicles, where they look like an alien vehicle, but they're not. And they stage events to make it look like we're possibly being attacked or could be attacked. And again, it all feeds into this military spending, we have to protect you from outer space, Dr. Evil kind of a thing.
A couple of things there. First of all, abductees would probably beg to differ. I know the couple of alien abductees that the people that have been abducted by aliens, they don't feel it's malicious. They almost feel like they're trying to be scientific, even though it's terrible. Just,
Right.
But I would say those people probably would disagree that they're, that this is not harmless.
And to possibly, in the best way I can, bridge the gap between what Dr. Greer is saying and what an experiencer who had a horrible experience might say is this. Try to understand, right, that there's a billion stars in just one galaxy and 100 billion galaxies, right? So obviously the universe is teeming with life, especially since humans are carbon-based, and that is the most basic thing you can possibly be. And every other thing out there has elements, right, from carbon. Right. So to think that there aren't other alien species is crazy. And, of course, you're going to have, like Star Trek, right? You're going to have an entire gambit of alien species, some more advanced, some less advanced, some where they don't even look at us as anything other than when you go collect a butterfly or you do research on an ant colony, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not that they're evil. They just may or may not see humans as anything that you need to worry about when it comes to their feelings or pain tolerance.
As a person who doesn't even eat meat, I know what you're saying.
And does that make them evil? I don't know. You can judge that for yourself. But does it also make them malevolent, where they're trying to blow up the Earth? Like Mars Attacks? No,
mm-hmm.
Right? So again, it's always a shade of gray. I've learned in life. It's very rare. Is it black or white?
I wonder how often the Greys use that statement.
What's that?
I wonder how often the Greys use that statement.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's never black and white. It's just gray. So there you go, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now you can understand that there's these tricks, these plans, these ploys to use aliens as the scapegoat. Right. Are there bad aliens? Possibly, maybe. Has Stephen Greer ever seen one or heard of one? No. Does that mean that all aliens do super nice things that are in humans' best interest? Perhaps not. But also, at the end of the day, does that mean they're here to blow up the planet and kill all of us? It looks like no.
Yeah, they would have.
There you go. Did I sum it up? There you go.
I think that was great. And also, isn't there stories of ships shutting down nuclear plants?
Yes.
That
was the most interesting thing. When I edited the footage, hundreds of hours of footage from over 100 military and government witnesses to UFO activity, the one bizarre thing was the nuclear connection. Aliens, ever since we detonated the first atomic bomb during the nuclear testing, the Manhattan Project, it attracted, according to the insiders, aliens to our planet, like a moth to a light. Suddenly, they were like, oh my gosh, what's happening? And according to the insiders, when you detonate an atomic weapon, it doesn't just locally blow up and send out some radiation. It has a ripple effect through multiple dimensions in space-time. So the effects can be felt through all sorts of, distances. And anyone that understands quantum non-locality understands that, quantum particles can be entangled. What you do to one can immediately affect another one, even if it was 1 trillion light years away.
Yes.
So distance means nothing, right? So they came here. And if anybody ever asks, why would aliens be interested in us? We're just a speck on the edge of a nondescript galaxy. Who cares? Well, that's why. We basically set off a giant firecracker that attracted them. Mm-hmm. And ever since then, they have buzzed nuclear aircraft carriers, missile silos. We have a guy on the USS Roosevelt, a nuclear-powered carrier, where the entire ship went dead in the water.
I have a metaphysical story to go with this, but first I have to say, does quantum locality also come low fat?
No.
I don't know why I thought that was so funny. I think I haven't eaten today, Jeff.
And it is GMO. Sorry.
It is GMO. Okay. Before you go to the ship, or you continue with the ship. I'm going to tell this story after.
Sure.
The ship just went dead in the water.
So which is bad. And so, and there's no reason for it to have gone dead in the water. In other words, it was a complete
show of
catastrophic failure of all of their systems. And when I say everything went dead. Propulsion, everything. What they were able to discover when it went back online after about 20 minutes is that there was a 200 to 300 foot wide craft hovering above the carrier that couldn't be seen physically with your eyes, but was showing up on all radar as a solid contact. So then it disappeared, and the ship went back online again, and everything went back online. And I'll just say very briefly, other instances here in the United States at nuclear missile silos, where you have 20 to 27 ICBMs underground somewhere in Malmstrom Air Force Base, and guys underground in missile silos. We had one witness where over 20 missile silos went inert, offline, ding, 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 like dominoes. And he got a call from above on the surface that there was an alien craft hovering over the base.
Wow.
And then as soon as it left, all the missiles came back online again.
That's a show
These are guys
of power.
that work for NORAD with huge security clearances, guys. It's not like some weird drunk farmer out in the middle of nowhere that says his cow got mutilated, right? These are vetted military professionals that would never want to make themselves look stupid that are telling these stories.
Yes, and no offense to weird drunk farmers.
At all.
At all.
Because weird drunk farmers are opening for Foo Fighters, I think, at Coachella on day 3.
I can't stop. I'm sorry. I haven't had a lot of sleep. I remember there was a book about near-death experiences, and I bought it for my dad because my dad is kind of an agnostic, but it was written by a minister who was not a minister and had a negative near-death experience. He had a very negative one. People always joke, no one has a negative one. His was horrible, about being in the dark and being surrounded by things that were bullying him and all these awful things. And he gets out, he starts to pray, and the light opens up or whatever. So he has a conversation with God. And which is this is where everything gets murky, because I think we're not supposed to look at God. We're not supposed to see God. I don't think anybody know. I don't think we're that advanced. But this guy said, and this was in the 80s that it happened, and he asked God about nuclear war, and God said, "I will never let it happen. It will never happen again." And I always remembered that because I thought, well, that's now that if the aliens are shutting down, who is that? You know what I mean? Like, I guess, does that make any sense, or did I get too woo? I know.
Oh no, I mean, so the problem, the interesting thing when you get kind of into esoteric stories about near death and whatever, the interesting thing is the stories themselves, and I don't think you can discount them because we can't prove if they're true or not. Mm-hmm. But you also have to understand that you've gone pretty far down the rabbit hole when brain functioning starts to shut off, right? We don't really know what's happening in that guy's brain and what's real and what's not real, any more than the guy who walked into a cave and then came out with the Book of Revelations. Right. The golden dragon is going to attack the 10 cups and the fire will eat this. And it's like, is it also possible you have a mild form of dementia?
Or
is
mushrooms.
That possible?
Mushrooms, yes.
Yeah. So.
Yes, it is a weird, but I will never forget that one statement. We're not going to let it happen. And then when I started to hear about UFOs shutting stuff down, maybe they are actually our protectors. And I differentiate too, because I think people channel particular aliens, and I feel that could be different than sometimes what's coming down in the ship. They said, I don't know if they said there's like 360, I remember it was very close to the days of the years, categorizations of aliens. So do you know anything about that? Alien a day calendar?
No, the only thing I do know, it was kind of a funny little antidote. One of the witnesses was a gentleman who recently died. His name was Clifford Stone, and he was relatively high ranking in the military back in I think it was late 50s, 60s. And he claimed that he was part of a couple projects, Blue Fly and Moon Dust, I think they were called. And they were alien craft retrieval teams. So it wasn't, believe it or not, horribly uncommon for alien craft to actually crash or be targeted by us and crash. And when that would happen, they would pretend that there was some kind of an incident so they could clear out the area, like a horrible chemical spill, a nuclear leak of some kind, something that was very toxic, get away, and they would rope off the area, go in, retrieve whatever it was, put it in wherever it needs to go, and then get out of there. And he was asked at a press conference in Washington, D.C., when Dr. Greer gathered all these witnesses for a press conference, he was asked by a reporter, you say that there's these aliens, what do they look like? And I think I said this in a previous episode, but his response was hilarious. He said, when I left the program, and I think he said in the 70s, there was something like a dozen or two known alien species that do for sure exist that we have documented. So I can't answer that question because I don't know which one you're referring to.
Oh, that's great.
Now, I don't know. I mean, Karen, honestly, if there's even one alien species out there, right, there's trillions. Because, again, what humans don't really grasp, what they don't understand, is how vast a single galaxy is, and how many planets there are, and how many stars there are in a galaxy. And then you times that by hundreds of billions of other galaxies. And all you need is carbon to create life, one form of life. You'd have to be phenomenally xenophobic, borderline stupid to actually believe that we're the only, intelligent species that was ever created in the universe that we live in. It's ludicrous.
And that's one of the things. It's like I'm still always amazed when there's like a non-believer, like there's no psychic ability or there's no aliens. Like I almost think that's a fear-based answer, because exactly what you said. How could that be? Also, how could we possibly expect them all to get along? That's another thing. But it's that thing we talked about before, that the psychological thing that all humans have to deal with, which is cognitive dissonance. We all have a comfort zone and a world that, whether or not we know it, we've created for ourselves. And that's why talking about politics or religion or even music can get people violent, because if you're attacking their belief system and the comfort zone that they have tricked their brain into believing exists, then they get emotional and they lose their shit, frankly. And, it's not about logic and it's not about facts. And I can talk all day long about carbon and hundreds of billions of galaxies, and that will just make them more and more upset because their brain is in conflict. Its defense mechanisms are kicking in, and that's something that's instinctive and natural. That's why I remember on long time on Art Bell, a long time ago, a lady that was, it was a Bible-based one, or it was about demons or the mark of the beast or whatever. And she had said, if it turns out there's aliens, I'll kill myself. Because she couldn't, she said, then there's no God or whatever. It got very black and white. And I said, bring in the grays.
Right. That's right. Which is so funny to me, by the way, because the Bible, does it? We're not Bible scholars, but does the Bible say mankind is the only thing that was ever created? And even if it does say that in the Bible, and I can stand here corrected, people do have to remember, and I hate to say this, the Bible was not written by God. Exactly. It was written by people and rewritten multiple times by various control groups, including the Catholic Church. So you're not, why people think they're reading the Word of God, you're basically saying, I'll have to take your word for it on that.
Right.
I'm the best car dealer in the nation. Okay, well, I'll take your word for it on that, but can you get me a good car?
Yeah, that's all that matters.
I don't even know what that means when you say that, sir.
There's this wonderful lady on TikTok, and she's on Instagram too, and she's a real minister or pastor, I think, and she really does. She's like, there really wasn't any mention of gay people being good or bad either. That's not in there, and she did a thing about what Jesus would look like and what Mary would look like, and people do that match. I put one of the pictures up on my Instagram, because they went by historical, like what the time was. He wouldn't have had a long beard because that was almost like different sects had different beards. And they went through all this stuff. And this artist drew the most beautiful picture of what Jesus would look like. Middle Eastern man. Of course, I love those to begin with. I bought it. I bought the art, Holly Faye art, if anyone wants to. She's amazing. And I bought the one with the Virgin Mary too. Beautiful, would have had nose ring, would have had jewelry, all this the frowns I get when I show this picture of probably what these people really look like, and just talk about out of people's comfort zone. They can't. Jesus was white.
Right. I'm from Utah. Yeah, exactly. So interesting how things develop over time, and how we culturally appropriate things like anthropomorphizing animals to, this is what Santa Claus looks like because of a Coca-Cola ad.
Right. That
romanticized that he was a jolly man in a red suit with the patented outfit.
We all know he was
forever
Asian.
and more, that's Santa Claus,
Yes.
Whereas the Germans said he was a guy that would run around with a giant wooden phallus and beat children that were bad.
That's my favorite Santa Claus right there. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, I got a new topic I want to ask you about. I think that we didn't get to this one ever before, Jeff. All right, folks, we'll be right back.
Psychic teas, spelled with a Z, are scrumptious herbal combinations with antiviral and anti-inflammatory properties. Without sugar or caffeine, psychic teas won't mess with any medications and are designed by a naturopathic doctor. Many testify to positive results. Detox chakras and psychic tea blends enable bodily functions with superior efficacy, while more love and champagne blends support awareness of subtle joy and bliss. The CBD's teas are magical with myriad healing effects. There are 20 servings per package. A little dab will do ya, and you can drink it hot or cold. Psychic teas taste so good. Replace coffee, use as a bedtime ritual, or even flavor a meal or dessert. The people behind the product are righteous and kind. Psychic teas will blow your mind. Totally worth the investment. Psychic Teas with a Z.com.
All right. So I did a whole podcast on this, but sort of like what we're talking about, this leans in Denver Airport. What is that? And someone just put a comment up on YouTube, on YouTube, and they said, how would someone get 3 buildings under the ground? Because that's the story, was that they build like 3 buildings and then they're like, oh, we did it wrong. And then they put them underground. And my answer was, I think they were building them to put them underground. I don't think that was an error. Do you know what I mean? Does that make any sense?
Yeah. Well, understand that even building the equivalent of a 2-story tract home size area would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. So to say, I accidentally spent, $100 million, laying the foundation, digging the hole, removing the dirt for these giant areas that are multiple levels down. That's not an accident. An accident is, you mean you didn't put a bathroom in all of those suites over there on that side of the hospital? Oh, shit. Okay. Now, you idiot, that's supposed to be a bathroom, not a closet.
Right.
That's an accident. Yeah. So, no, I think it's safe to say that wasn't an accident.
And what is that? Is that an Armageddon structure? They said the barbed wire is to keep people in, not to let them out.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things about the Denver airport that people refer to quite a bit, aside from the Masonic symbols that are found everywhere, kind of without explanation, right? I mean, in other words, if you see a Masonic symbol and it's on like a granite obelisk in the center of a foyer out there in the Denver airport or whatever, or a plaque that costs a lot of money that's in the ground, you would say, oh, well, there must be something like, we'd like to thank the local chapter of Masonic Lodge 19 through 27 for their generous donation, and here's a desk for more information if you'd like to join the Mason. No, there's no explanation as to why those are there or what they're doing there or what that even means. And, of course, a lot of people refer to the giant murals that have been painted by an interesting artist.
That they have now taken down.
They did. They finally took it down.
They took down especially that worst one, the one that with the coffin. Well, they were all awful. But I had a friend who was an artist that was like, no, those colors were designed to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But no, one of them was down because I was just in there last year, and one, I think only one is still up. But they've replaced all that with the we're leaning into the alien jokes kind of thing,
which is smart. I mean, I think, and so for those that don't know, there was these murals painted by an artist that were horrific, nightmarish. Anybody that remembers the show Night Gallery with Rod Serling, back in the 70s, these all looked like something from the show Night Gallery, just these really gothic, creepy paintings showing young children being led, to coffins and Nazi stormtrooper-looking characters wearing gas masks and almost like Darth Vader helmets marching, different ethnicities to their deaths or whatever, with fire and brimstone and all kinds of other weird imagery. And it's like, I'm just trying not to freak out about my flight. Is this really seriously? So, now, I mean, why would they build it all that stuff under there, I mean, I guess, who knows? I mean, the military might have wanted it, and it might not be anything bad. It might just be, we have this stuff that we need to put in there, and this would be perfect for us. So while you're doing it, make this for us. That's possible. It could be that there's hundreds of billions of dollars tied up in a local chapter of Mormons or some other religious group, and that's somehow privately owned and operated by them for some weird reason. I don't know that it means every human's going to be corralled and that everything's going to turn into Soylent Green, but it might mean that there's some kooky people with a lot of money that, think that that's a cool thing to do.
See, and I think the exact opposite. I think that's where if there was a nuclear war or something, for some reason, and I could not find this, so folks, this isn't a fact. This was in my head. Whoops, I'm going to sneeze.
What's that?
Me.
Sure.
I thought that's where you go at the end of the world. At the end of the world, you go there and you sit underneath until the nuclear fallout.
Well, that would be thousands of years, so good luck with that. So,
well, it's big, though. They have a lot of canned
at least hundreds,
beans.
Yeah. Well, and that plays into a really interesting mythology amongst Native Americans, indigenous folks here in the United States that talk about the Kachina, or the star people that came down and warned of our future. And some of these star people allegedly were us from the future, very drastically evolved into a different looking creature, but, humanoid. So imagine that humanoids at some point, according to this mythology, evolve and split. And one faction of humanity, I'm oversimplifying, goes into some far reaches of space, and they're much more spiritually centered, and maybe they look more like Pleiadians or whatever you can imagine. Another race, much more scientific, left brain, logical, goes to a different part, leaves Earth, and ultimately evolves into what we would consider your classic alien, right? Bald, big eyes, little mouth, maybe even kind of insectoid looking. And that's what some of these tribes were talking about. And they said that, we have come here to warn you and talk to you about your future. We are you from the future, and here's what happens. Mankind is forced underground. I'm thinking less by nuclear fallout and more possibly climate change. I mean, that's a very big possibility within the next century, that climate change is bad enough that it does that. And according to their mythology, humans were forced underground, lived underground for millennia, and ultimately evolved into a very different looking creature that started to develop more insectoid features and were known by them as the ant people. So how that plays into grays and whether this is all real or not, I don't know. But it's interesting that we've had other witnesses that worked at Groom Lake, which is referred to as Area 51 sometimes, but I guess, who said they worked alongside an extraterrestrial biological entity that they codenamed J-Rod. And he said the exact same story.
That's your band.
That was my band, yeah, because my little UFO band that I formed. And they said the exact same thing, that, look, we're you from the future. I am you. This is what you look like, however many hundreds of thousands, maybe a million or more years in the future. And yeah, you guys are forced underground and you start to evolve into something different and eventually leave the planet.
Wow. How do you, that guy that sat next to J-Rod had to be single, because how would you not tell your wife, who would not tell her friend?
Meet these guys. Exactly. I love it. No, that's so true. But look at the interviews and you'll know, like, one of them is just a Marine captain who worked on backwards engineering and creating UFO type craft for our military and pilots, based on instructions given to him by this captured entity that he called J-Rod, and he worked alongside him for decades.
And did he say that J-Rod was captured, or was he there of his own will?
He can't answer a bunch of questions as to how he got there. There's other people that let a little more insight on that, that it was a downed craft in Kingman, Arizona, and he was one of the surviving two. And he stayed here, and half against his will, but we did keep him alive. He helped us out and gave us some basic understanding of how to create craft like that. And that craft is not given to the Air Force or the Marines. That is super black ops, like beyond black ops. So if you were to go to a general right now in the Army, they would have no idea what you're talking about. They're not in the loop. That's how it all works. It's need to know. So, this guy said in order to even work in that sector alongside this alien, they tested a bunch of people. They put them in a room and did a psychological profile test, and they showed them people that had mutations, burn victims, skin anomalies, all kinds of graphic pictures of people that had wounds, and just things to kind of trip you out and kind of horrify you. And anybody that didn't have a problem and seemed kind of immune to that kind of visual stimulus made it to the next level. And then eventually this guy just sort of made it to the final level, and they just said, "Hey, are you going to have a problem working alongside this guy?" And he said, his exact words were, I don't, he had kind of an accent, so funny, "I don't really care where you're from. I just got a job to do, you know?" So it was fascinating. It's a great interview. I can put a link on your podcast if anyone wants to see this gentleman.
And please send it to me. Yes.
He has since passed away, but his interview is absolutely mind-blowing.
Okay, and I'll put that in the show notes. So text that to me as soon as we're done. Because that, I had a talk with my friend, the demonologist, that the veil. I was like, well, the veil's thinner. And he's like, well, there isn't really a veil like that. It's what our consciousness can see. So the more we can see, you know what I mean? The more these things are in our consciousness, the more we will see them. And it's very interesting that I have to know more. I have to see that interview, because that's whether they're here to help or they're not, like, maybe I don't need plastic surgery if we're going there. Maybe I don't want to look like the insect with their face pulled too tight. It's interesting that we would look insectoid if we're going underground, which would lead to believe our insects, they must look that way because they're adapting to their environment, right?
That was I guess what they were implying was that you're underground, we're not burrowing, but we're tunneling, right? And we're in a dark area largely oftentimes, and so we kind of evolve.
Have to have different
Devolve,
eyes.
I don't know what you would say, but evolve into a different looking species they called it the ant people,
Probably low ceilings. You'd be crawling.
We're just guessing. God, who knows?
I know, but that's where my brain is going now. I'm trying to figure out.
And would it be a primitive situation because most of everybody got wiped out, and so the folks that were left, aren't scientists or necessarily amazing at building things, and so it's sort of like we're kind of starting over again, and it's kind of ugh.
Yeah.
But and for anyone that wants to jump ahead. The gentleman I was talking about, his name is Bill, 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 and his last name is Uhouse, Uhouse, Bill Uhouse.
And that's on that we can find that on YouTube.
I'm sure it's in Unacknowledged, which is on Amazon, the documentary. But yes, you could just go to YouTube and you can see multiple interviews with him, including the one that we did. And this guy is so believable because unlike fake witnesses that are trying to get attention and write a book, and they're just doing it to, again, get attention, right? They will go off on tangents, these people that claim to be witnesses, on things that they know nothing about, but they'll suddenly claim to be an expert on that as well. And that's how you can always kind of smell out someone that may not be telling the truth. Bill Uhouse, if you stray even a tiny bit from what he worked on or what he knew, he won't even speculate. I don't know nothing about that. That's not what I worked on. That kind of answer.
Wow. Did he say what they looked like?
Exactly. He drew a picture. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a great picture. We can also post it if you want, but it's an amazing picture of basically your classic alien wearing a white dress shirt showing up for work.
Really?
And he said the way that they communicated took a lot of time to get used to, and he was one of the few guys that could communicate with them long term, and it had something to do with the physicality of his brain was just happened to be correct for them to communicate. So they would never communicate verbally or vocalize anything or make sounds. They would speak to you in your head, and you would hear their words in your own voice, as if you were hearing your voice in your head. And because it didn't work all the time, which isn't a limitation of them, it's really a limitation of the human brain, that he said it got really annoying because sometimes it would be like a parrot. You would say, all right, now how am I going to, get this, capacitor, up to that level of electricity? And then what he would hear in his head is, how am I going to get that capacitor up to that level of electricity? And you had to wait for that echo to kind of subside. And then sometimes they would just have days where you have to just kind of throw his hands up in the air and go, God damn it. All right, we'll try again tomorrow. But
wow.
That's how they communicated, yeah.
And ladies and gentlemen, you can just Google this and the picture comes right up. And you can see he's,
It's a riveting story on how Area 51 got where it is, when they started construction, the devices that he built. He'll explain to you in graphic detail exactly how they did it, how much electricity it took, what it was like for the pilots to be inside of one of these, how they had to work the controls opposite, because the early days, the electromagnetic energy would play tricks on the pilot's brain. And so when you moved your hand left on a control, it was actually going right because of the way your brain is playing tricks on you. So, I mean, he just gives weird details that you're just like, good God.
Wow.
Fascinating.
Well, it is. That picture, it's a typical gray in a shirt. I think it's very interesting because I still have to try and get Travis Walton on. He was from A Fire in the Sky. He was the guy that was abducted, the loggers. And he said, one of the things he tells, and he did a second part to and he said how when all this went down, it was a national case. For folks that don't know, Travis Walton was abducted. They were all out logging in Arizona. And it became a national case because he was picked up by the spaceship. The other guys saw it, and they were trying to accusing those guys of murdering him. So it was like murder, alien, strange case. So Travis was saying how his brother got a phone call from someone that said, when you find him, you do not let anyone take him anywhere. And so they said, you take him to this particular doctor. So when Travis showed up, they took him to this guy that did test after test after test on his brain, and all they found, because when the ship picked him up and it seemed to drop him or throw him, they found all, like in 5 days, all his bones had healed. And there was only like one pin mark or one little mark on him that they couldn't, which was obviously where the aliens went in and fixed all his bones. But he said, the thing that was so creepy was the way these people were looking at him, and he wasn't getting the telepathic messages that other people were. And finally they left him alone, and then one came back in that looked more human, and it started talking to him. And what had happened, he said, what one of the guy found in one of the tests was, when he had been thrown in the beginning, he bumped his head, and there was a part of his brain that had been, bruised or damaged, that was the same part they attribute to telepathy. So when they were trying to talk to him in that way, that this guy said, he couldn't get it because his brain had been damaged. But it's very interesting how all this loops around. I think telepathy is one of the bigger psychic senses now. I think people really have it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And for sure. Carol Rosin, the woman in the aerospace industry who worked with Werner von Braun, when she was giving his speeches as he was dying of cancer and could no longer give his speeches in the 70s, talking to large forums and military people, the way that he would communicate with her and kind of teleprompt her was very unusual. He would actually, now this isn't speaking into your mind using telepathy, but they actually had a device that would beam the audio directly to your head. So she very plainly told me that she would hear the words in her head very clearly as if someone was speaking on a microphone, and then she would just repeat the words. And she could talk for an hour and a half or 2 hours, and he would just be talking to her from somewhere else, and that's how they communicated. And Karen, I'm going to tell your folks right now that this is no lie. There is a technology right now. It's not military or dark secret. This is going to be available in just a couple of years, and there's all kinds of articles about it. There's a little black box that you can put in your house now, and it will track your face all throughout the house, and it will beam sound to the outside of your ear, not in your brain, but it will beam it to a little pocket on the outside of your ear, and it will track the movement of your head so that the sound beam is always floating and hovering just outside of your ears. Nobody else in the room can hear the audio, just you. And if you watch these people testing it, this isn't fake, this is all real, it's mind-blowing. These people are going, my God, I'm listening to music right now. Are you telling me, Karen, that you can't hear the music that I'm listening to in my head right now? Nope. So,
wow.
This is no longer science fiction. And again, this isn't inside the person's brain, but it's still pretty amazing.
Whew, everybody, you know what? Everyone goes on HBO, watch the series Years and Years. It not only was it amazing, but it shows where we're going. It shows the girl tries to get a camera put in her eyeball. The eyeball becomes a camera. It's pretty, well, I guess it's scary. Oh, it always seems scary because we're not there yet. Maybe it's not, but wow, earphones without earphones. Jeff, another great episode. Tell everybody again about your album. This will be out April 19th, I think. So whenever it is, you will, maybe it'll be done by then.
Yeah, if anybody is interested, and again, these are fun, retro, pop punk, bubblegum sounding songs that you might hear in the 80s, kind of like ska, fun, music. There's going to be some really great little music videos that I'm going to make for the 12 songs. Each song tells a little science fiction story, almost like you're watching an episode of Dark Mirror or a Twilight Zone. And so the goal is that ultimately I'll have 12 songs that are all interconnected and really fun that you can watch in 40 minutes. And the name of the band is Sonic Descent. Sonic, and then Descent is Descent. Sonic Descent on Instagram, sonicdescent.com, and that's the name of the Facebook page as well. So all those updates will be there. You can listen to a sample, and Karen might even play one for you if you're good.
Yes, let's hope we can get one on the end of this. If not, go follow right away. Wow, thank you, Jeff. Always just so fascinating. Always a great episode.
You bet. I look forward to next time. Talk to you soon.
All right. And bye, everybody. I'll say thanks to Mike at Uno Rising Media. Hopefully I'll see you in Cape Cod next month. Or, the end of May. The end. You'll figure it out. Bye, everybody.